Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening to the Quality Hub, chatting with ISO experts. I'm your host, Xavier Francis, and I'm here with Suzanne Weber-Smotko, Manager of Consulting Services here at Core Business Solutions. We're glad you could be here with us today, Suzanne.
Thank you, Xavier. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Today's show is entitled Planning Your Quality Management System, and we're going to talk about some of the steps that will help you get your QMS rolling. But first off, let's learn a little bit more about our guest. Suzanne, can you tell us more about yourself?
Absolutely. I've been in quality for a long time, a little over 30 years. I've probably held every role that you can possibly think of in quality, being from quality clerk to technician to engineer to supervisor to manager to right up into including a senior leadership role, a corporate quality director. And my background is mostly in aerospace for quality systems. But I have a background in supplier performance, excellence. So it's been a long journey, and it's been a fun journey. I started in quality. I knew that I was going to be interested in quality because luckily I was surrounded by team members that really saw the value in a quality management system. So that's what got me interested in it, because I was really able to see the value that a good quality management system can bring to an organization. Mm-hmm. And throughout my career of 30 years, you can imagine, I've seen a lot of different organizations, and not everybody kind of gets that, but it's really, really nice to be able to educate people and bring companies to the level of understanding what the value can bring for a company.
Well, I've certainly seen your passion in that, in our experiences here at Core Business Solution, that you are very passionate about what you do.
Well, that's what I like about my job, right? I like being able to, sometimes you get a lot of pushback. Leadership teams or management or even just regular team members sometimes don't see that value. That's a struggle that everyone has every single day, right? Is trying to get people to understand the value of that. So that's why I love what I do. I mean, I love being able to teach people the value of a management system and not just having a certification and being able to sustain it. So it's been a really, really, really good journey so far.
Well, that's great. And we're really glad that you're here today to help us talk through some of these. They might be a little bit starting principles with the quality management system, but with your experience, I'm sure we are going to get quite a bit of knowledge there. So to get us started, what are some of the main steps to begin planning a quality management system?
Well, I think it's around, most people understand it as plan, do, check, act. And I'll get into...
So that's PDCA?
PDCA, yes.
That, in case people didn't know the wonderful acronyms.
Oh, there's lots of acronyms, right?
Oh, my goodness, yes. It's just so many.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I can break that down a little bit for you from my perspective. I think it's defining and understanding what your customers and interested parties require of you. So understanding requirements. And then you would basically structure your quality management system in terms of defining some foundational documentation and planning what that quality management system looks like.
So putting that structure in place.
Yeah, putting the structure in place. And then part of that is really defining what you can measure, because we know, and you may hear me say this again, if we're not measuring it, we're not managing it very good.
That's a really good way to put it, because if you're not paying attention, you don't know what's going on.
Exactly. And there's lots of people that go home every night and think, well, geez, what can I do better? Or they can't sleep because something's bothering them in the organization. Well, my recommendation is always, find a way to measure it. And then once you have a baseline of where you're at, then you can start identifying ways to improve it.
Yeah, you have to have the data to make some kind of decision on.
Absolutely. And that would bring up the next point, right, is that it makes you or allows you to make data-driven decisions so that it's not non-value-added work, if you know what I mean.
Right. You're paying attention to what is there and moving forward in some manner. Maybe it's a different direction. The data might point, hey, we need to focus to something else, or the data might go, hey, we're right on point.
Absolutely.
We here at Core do quality manuals. Could you explain why we chose to go that route and what benefits you might get by developing one?
It's really documenting a framework of your quality system along with the requirements. It's always better to have a high-level document that is going to build that framework of what your approach is going to be so that you can provide that to a customer, a supplier, an external auditor, and most importantly to your team so that they understand at a higher level what your requirements are and how you make an approach to meet a certain requirement.
Well, and that's one thing that's nice about quality management systems, especially in 9000, when you kind of define how you want to do it, right?
Absolutely.
You're putting it together on your own, based on your own principles, your own needs as a company.
That's correct. Your approach and what you're putting into your documentation absolutely has to reflect what it is that your business is doing. No one can tell you how you're going to do something. It's how you do business. You take your approach to doing it. It's your way of documenting how you're taking your approach.
And that's important because not every business is the same. And you want to develop based on your principles, on your goals, on your desires of how you want your business to focus and run.
Absolutely.
That defines what you are and makes you special. And if quality management system is going to tell you how to do it, that may take some of that out. Or in this case, it gives you a framework to look at your process and how you want to do it.
Right. And for those who have quality experience, you know that quality systems, they like you to document what it is that you're doing, right? Do what you say you're doing. So that quality manual gives you that high level approach of how you're going to do things and how you're going to meet those requirements of whatever standard you're going to work to.
It makes total sense. Now, a company also needs to develop some quality objectives. What are those quality objectives and how might they benefit a business once they put them in place?
Quality objectives are specific measurable goals that a company sets to improve its quality management system. Again, if you're not measuring something, you're not managing it properly. Everybody's quality objectives are different. They're typically derived and aligned with some type of strategic objective of the company. You know, I'll just give you an example from my past is, you know, I went into a corporate leadership role and I was asked how I was going to improve the cost of poor quality. And for that business, they define the cost of poor quality as scrap, rework, and warranty claims or product defects. They didn't measure anything.
I was just about ready to ask that. I was going to say, were they measuring those to know what they were looking at?
No. They had absolutely no idea. There were multiple sites that I had managed at the time. So we made a standard way of collecting the scrap data, collecting the rework data, and collecting the warranty claim data. They didn't have the numbers until they actually put it together, and it was well over $2 million a year.
Wow!
And that's a lot.
That's
a lot of money.
That's just going in the trash, basically.
That's correct. So what we did was we stood up quality objectives to measure all three of those: scrap, rework, and product defects or warranty claims. We started measuring them, and then once we saw where we were at each one of the respective sites, we started, talking about action items to take on what we can do to eliminate scrap. We made the data-driven decisions and we're successful in reducing that number significantly.
It's just amazing what people aren't paying attention to. I know that in a previous podcast, a different Suzanne Strasser mentioned that sometimes when people get into this, it's just a controlled chaos. And they're not measuring anything. They don't know what's what. They're just looking at a bottom line and don't know how to, why aren't we profitable or why are we struggling?
Absolutely.
And once you start measuring things and putting it in a framework and then making objectives based on that information, it's probably harder not to get some kind of result than it would be in not doing anything at all, which so many companies are doing to start with.
Yes. I mean, my background is quality and manufacturer operations, and you would be surprised how many people don't measure things. But what really gets people's attention is what hits your bottom line. And they don't realize that poor quality or not having a quality management system or measuring something, how much it is affecting their bottom line. They think it's small numbers, but, when you put it all together, it can add up pretty quickly. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we talked about, measuring things. There used to be more in 9001 as far as documentation. You talked about it a little bit. Apart from just writing things down and knowing the data, what are some other benefits of documentation that we see by using a QMS?
Well, I think documentation, it defines the expectation of an organization. I'll give you an example. In the manufacturing world, everybody wants to blame the operator when something goes wrong on a shop floor. If you dig into the root cause of why things go wrong, it's not like people show up every day and want to do a bad job.
Right.
What you often find is when you do an effective root cause and corrective action, a company really didn't define work instructions good enough to make this employee successful. So what I would say is documentation, it defines the expectation of the job
Well, and that, I mean, that's going to probably help with morale.
There's no doubt. I mean, in my experience, what I've learned is that the people that are on the shop floor, if you're in a manufacturing facility, or the actual people that are delivering a service or doing the work, are the ones that can build the best work instructions, because they're the ones that are making the company hum and making the product or delivering the service.
So getting them involved in some of this documentation and process writing and things like that is definitely beneficial.
Absolutely. It's 100% the best way to get employees engaged in your quality management system.
And it gets them buy-in too. I mean, if you're part of the process of designing how something is being done, you're going to take some ownership into it because you had some say in it.
That's correct.
And it shows respect from management to say, hey, we value you enough to get your input on this and help us figure this out.
Exactly.
Because we know you, because you're the one that does it to begin with.
Yes, exactly.
So once we're documenting some of these things, that obviously would next lead to helping and training new people that are coming on.
Absolutely. I mean, that's how you get sustainability in your quality management system and repeatability. If you have it defined, everybody's doing it the same way. It removes the variability that you would see in employee performance or bad product or any of that. It definitely makes it sustainable, repeatable. It removes the guessing work from employees. You don't want to put them in that position.
Right. It probably would help also if you do find a problem and you're looking for a root cause, or maybe an employee has an idea that might benefit the process in some way. I'm sure they're going to feel more open to bring that to the attention of a manager or somebody.
That is actually one of the key points in terms of communication or awareness to employees, is that you want to continue to engage them so that they contribute that way to how effective your quality management system is.
Absolutely. And this is all from documenting what you already do.
Yes. Yep.
So, you're documenting what you do. You can now look at it. You have something you measured, and it's going to benefit you by saying, hey, this is how we can do it better. Or, hey, this is great. Maybe we should implement that into another part of the company and communicate a similar way. And
benchmarking and best practices. I mean, that's how you get it done, is engaging employees. I think ultimately what you want to do is you want to make sure that you can't go and define everything, right? You can't boil the ocean. So what you really need to do is you need to start where you have a problem in the organization, or based on an internal audit or an external audit or a supplier audit. If you're getting findings in a consistent area, then you want to start in those areas and start making your documentation a little bit more robust so that it goes across the organization.
No, absolutely. And we're actually going to talk about that, some of the audit findings and stuff in a later podcast. So, and actually we're going to be doing that with you. So
awesome.
You can explain a little bit more about that a little bit later on as well.
All right, great.
To me, it's almost like the initial part of planning your quality management system is being intentional and starting to pay attention to things that you weren't paying attention to before.
That's correct.
You're planning that out. Plan, do, check, act. So we're starting to plan right now.
Yes.
How we're going to wrangle this thing, how we're going to eat the elephant.
Yes.
One bite at a time.
That's correct. Yeah.
That old adage.
Yeah. So you're gonna plan out your quality management system and make sure that you understand those customers, interested parties, and expectations. Then you're going to document, maybe your key processes, and then you're gonna do and perform those. And then when you do that, you're going to set your quality objectives of what is important for you to measure. The check part of that plan, do, check, act, that PDCA, the C part of that is to look at your data for that quality objective and identify areas of improvement.
Yes, that's yeah. And then you can act on it.
That's the act.
That's the act
part. Yep.
I guess, we are going to be covering some of those other things later in a later podcast, breaking some of those down. Again, this is an elephant when you're starting.
Yes.
You might not have chosen to do it. You might have needed to do it. So you're here because you have to do it. But we really want to show, too, that through experience and everything that you've done and the years that we've worked with thousands and thousands of customers, the quality management system is really going to benefit your business. Once you start paying attention.
Absolutely.
Measuring, analyzing, figuring it out, it's just going to make things better for your business.
Yes. I've worked with businesses that haven't not seen the value in a quality management system. And the greatest thing about what I do now is, that aha moment when somebody looks at you and goes, oh, I get it.
Yep.
All right. I get it.
Do you have anything else you'd like to share in starting planning your quality management system that you would recommend for businesses?
Well, for me, I think one of the most important things that I've seen benefit companies when you're standing up a quality management system is that engagement that we talked about. Allowing everyone, everyone owns quality. Years ago, it used to be that quality manager that sat back in an office and they handled all the problems of the company. They probably barely slept at night. But now leadership has to own it. It has to start from the top down. In my experience, I've seen it where it does start from the top down and it doesn't start from the top down.
And I bet it works better when it starts from the top down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, you lead by example, right? And if people know that you care about the quality of your product or about the quality of service that you're delivering, they know that your leadership cares, then they care. It really doesn't take a lot of time to engage folks and get that buy-in. Yeah, it's got to come from the top down for sure.
This has been a great discussion with you today, Suzanne, and I really want to appreciate you taking the time and effort to share your experiences and your expertise when it comes to planning out a quality management system.
Oh, it's certainly always my pleasure, X. Thank you.
Thank you. And we want to thank everybody for listening to our podcast today. We hope it's been informative, and make sure that you check out the Quality Hub podcast for next week. Have a great day, everybody.